day. So, George Gamble, 8th on the grid, you see going through Paddock Hill Bend, and the grid headed by Hugo Ellis. For round 3 of the championship, Hugo Ellis, the man on pole position. Stephen Jelley with him at the front ahead of Will Martin and Andrew Rackstraw, who led briefly yesterday. Sid Smith is 5th, and Charles Rainford, a man to watch, starting 6th on the grid ahead of James Wallace, who in the week will start his A-levels, and George Gamble, 8th alongside. Then it's Matt Rees and Oliver White, Harry Foster and Will Burns starting 14th. Then you've got Josh Stanton and Josh Malin. Angus Whiteside will be next, ahead of Abby Eaton. Then Dan Lloyd and Ollie Jackson, former touring car racers both, but a long way back on the grid, ahead of Henry Dawes and Ross Wiley. Then it's Jack Butel and Will Aspin. Justin Sherwood returns in place of Lee Mole, who's away racing in the Monaco Historic Grand Prix. David Sterling is back. They are on the 12th row, and Richard Hosking for his first full weekend, because he missed Donington. He is at the rear of the grid. I mentioned Will Aspin. There he is, number 24, who is normally a front runner, normally a quick driver, but yesterday in the qualifying session he had quite a moment coming out of paddock. That's him through the gravel, but wait until he gets towards the grass, which just acts as a ramp, and the car absolutely launched a really heavy landing, and that did it a power of no good.
Yeah, something for MSV Brands Hatch to look at very carefully. The joining part between the gravel and the grass, there's a big lip there now. The gravel trap's been pushed well back and the barrier back, which is a great move, but it's created this situation where there's a solid hit coming off the gravel onto the grass, and had that been a front engine car or a single seater, that could have been very nasty. So something for MSV to look at, but a huge amount of damage to the car. The whole of the front end had to be replaced overnight by the Crack Road and Race bodywork team, who've done a great job. They were still working on that car this morning, and terrific effort to get the car back out onto the grid by the Eden Race team.
Having therefore been forced to miss yesterday's race. So the cars now making their way up towards the grid, and it is, as you've seen, Hugo Ellis at the front, but Stephen Jelley here needs points, and Andrew Rackstraw, the South African driver, at least he's got, if you like, a race under his belt of here, because normally he's coming to a venue completely blind, having not raced in the UK until this season, but he did do that race yesterday, so he's got a little bit of Brands knowledge. 34 laps or 30 minutes this race is going to be, and it's going to be really busy, because as we saw yesterday, there was a little bit of lappery involved, so don't be surprised when some of those slower AM cars or Pro-Am cars end up being negotiated by the race leaders. Hugo Ellis and Stephen Jelley, both cars operated out of Stuart Parker's stable. At the back of the grid there is Richard Hosking, who's from the CCK Motorsport team, and Richard himself returning to racing after a very, very long layoff. You've got to go back to the 1990s when he was racing Formula Renault and Formula 4 2000 before that. Round 3 of Carrera Cup GB about to get underway. Lights go out, blast off. Bad start by Andrew Rackstraw by the look of it, and there's another slow car behind him. Andrew Rackstraw's car does not want to get going as they head up towards Paddock Hill Bend for the first time. Through the right-hander leads Hugo Ellis, and Andrew Rackstraw's car is creeping towards Paddock, but I rather fear something has broken, and that's his race done even before it's properly started. Ellis, Jelley the top 2, Rackstraw coasts to a halt, and that car may force the safety car. There's a big drama coming out of Druids with somebody having launched.
Is that Abby Eaton? I'm worried it's Abby Eaton.
I was about to suggest it was Angus Whiteside, but either way, we've got the safety car being deployed and a sizable accident coming out of Druids then. So safety car deployed, and with that car rolling, it could even be a stoppage, because the initial, yes, red flag is being called for, so the race is stopped with that big shunt coming out of Druid. So it'll be the original grid for the restart, and everybody making their way back round to stop on the grid, and then we'll get the road tidied, and then we'll go again. But all of that was lots of cars going for the same bit of real estate coming out of Druids. Yeah,
two difficult situations. Andrew Rackstraw, basically, I think that either something went in the drivetrain there, either the clutch or the prop shaft drive, when he dropped the clutch. And everybody fortunately missed him on the line. That was my big worry to start with. But sadly, the real action was further on round the lap on the exit of Druids.
We had an incident yesterday on the first lap coming onto Cooper Straight that involved Jack Butel just sort of rubbing over the rear wheel arch, and because these cars are big and fat and flared wheel arches, they almost have a sort of ramp effect if you get it at the wrong angle.
You can't actually say fat. They're wide.
Oh, sorry.
They're wide.
I was speaking of experience of being fat, you see.
It is. It was certainly fat when I was in them. But look, yeah, the rear, these cars stick out, the wheel arches stick out, and the tyres are wide, and it is possible to run up the interlocking wheels and launch the car. That's probably what happened at Druids. It does happen. These cars aren't flat on the sides like a touring car, so you can't rub side by side just because the rear track is so much wider than the front. So you're right.
So yesterday, Jack Butel ended up with contact, I think it was with Henry Dawes, and it ended up with the coolant coming out of the front, and we lost him from the race. Somebody has brought the quick fit hoarding back to the start line. The incident team attending to the dramas over at Druids. Driver out of the car, and Angus Whiteside, I'm pretty sure it is. We're waiting confirmation when the car is tipped back up, but is that Will Burns I can see involved as well?
You're right, it was Angus Whiteside. Yesterday's winner, you can tell because he's the tallest driver on the grid. Well, talk about from hero to zero. Great to see the two guys all right.
Yeah, absolutely.
But a lot of damage to the car. Yeah, Angus Whiteside yesterday, absolutely, he's limping, but obviously nothing too serious. But he drove a brilliant race yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely.
He really did, under intense pressure all the way through. I was delighted to see him win that race, but that will be forgotten about now with the damage. And it was down to qualifying, really, because he qualified fairly well down the grid in 15th place.
So we'll have some replays to have a look at in a moment as you see all the work going on. They need to move the cars. The clerk of the course, they're having a look at the barrier damage. Right, this is the Andrew Rackstraw drama first up. So he crawls away, and there was another car. I think Will Burns also was slow away. That's why he kind of got into that incident zone. But Andrew Rackstraw's car crawled towards paddock, and that was that. Now, have a look at the mid part of the pack, because they go up towards Druids, and then it was lots of people all going for the same bit of tarmac, wasn't it? They came out of the corner.
It'll be on the exit.
Yeah, there's the tap, there's the launch, and then it just cartwheels and somersaults and goes over and over and over. That was a huge accident, and Will Burns' car already parked with the damage on the left front.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't much of a touch, was it? It was just that launch. Oh, here's a better angle, maybe. Wow. Just comes to get, it almost goes sideways, digs in and flips, doesn't it?
But once it goes, there's just no stopping it.
No. It shows even at the slowest corner on the track how much actual speed and momentum the cars have got.
So have another look. There's the clip.
Yeah.
And over it goes, and then having hit the ground, it just bounces and bounces.
And Will Burns' incident was completely separate.
Having gone off and hit the barrier. Right, so cars on the grid, all being well, we should be closer to racing when we come back to Brands Hatch after this short break. The Porsche GB Junior, 2 seasons of racing in front of him. Former oval racer, came out of mini stocks initially before coming into circuit racing, did James, as did the man whose team he drives for, Nick Tandy.
Yeah, quite appropriate, really, isn't it? Yeah. I don't think there was any doubt which team he was going to go with when he won that junior scholarship, was there? But he's got a tough act to follow with other juniors that have gone before him who have all won championships. But this is his first of 2 years, so very much the learning year, the first year.
And although he's always going to be judged against those other juniors, of course, it's a completely different entry this year, and as you made the point, it's a really tough season. Richard Hosking then in the Cognition Land and Water with CCK Motorsport entry will arrive at the back of the grid, and then 30 laps will be in prospect. So Hugo Ellis gets another chance to convert pole into the lead of the race, and Stephen Jelly alongside him will try to get the drop on the run towards paddock then. As soon as that last car slots into position, the indication will be given from the marshal at the back with the green flag that we are good to go. The doctor's car that chases for the first lap is in place as well, the Porsche Cayenne. And so we are ready to go for round 3 of Carrera Cup GB, the restart. Drivers look to the lights will go out any second. It's a long hole, but we're racing. Good start by Ellis, good start by Jelly, and a good getaway also by Charles Rainford on the outside line as they head into Paddock Hill Bend. Charles Rainford tries to get himself ahead of James Wallace, which he does. Sid Smith's green and white car just up the road ahead. But Hugo Ellis, yet to win in Carrera Cup GB, leads as they hit Druids on lap 1.
Yeah, everyone making a very good start at the front. That's Sid Green coming down the outside. We've got Charles Rainford on the inside, and he will take Graham Hill, although they're still side by side on the exit. But Sid Smith gets pushed out wide. Excellent start by Hugo Ellis, though. nailed the start. Sometimes off the pole position, down in the dip, you can make a poor start, but he had no problems at all.
Yeah, Hugo's third season in Porsche racing for MacArthur, but yet to be a race winner as the cars turn their way out of clearways into Clark Curve for the first time. And Ellis not only leads at the end of lap 1, but he has a tiny margin over the opposition. Jelly second, Martin third, Rainford is fourth, Smith fifth, Wallace sixth, and Matt Rees seventh. The leading rookie is Sid Smith, incidentally, and James Wallace is the junior, not eligible for that rookie award.
Yeah, a little bit of dust you saw coming out of clearways, all up the inside there. There's a move pulled.
So all that's going on behind Matt Rees, Oliver White in 94, the silver car, and it is Harry Foster, number 16, who gets back at him and goes ahead of Oliver White then on the run towards Surtees. Ollie White is in Pro-Am, where he runs second at the moment behind Sid Smith. Race leader Hugo Ellis then coming up towards the end of the lap, and not yet under pressure from Stephen Jelly. Number 7 there is Justin Sherwood, who has made something of a career out of winning championships in Porsches, the AM title particularly, former Formula 3 racer in Lee Mold's car for the weekend. As now up towards Druids goes Ellis, and he's already ahead by 0.6 of a second.
Yeah, and with the fastest lap on that lap, so he's stretching his lead just a little bit over Stephen Jelly. There's always a little bit of balance between tyre pressures on these cars, as some cars with a slightly lower tyre pressure hit their marks a little bit quicker than those with higher tyre pressures, or rather the other way around. The high tyre pressures come in quicker, the lower tyre pressures work better at the end of the race, but at the moment Ellis certainly has the pace.
44 you're looking at there is Abby Eaton in the Rebellio Motorsport car. It's operated by Team Parker, but Rebellio Motorsport is the team that Abby co-owns, so promoting that brand. And she's back in the UK after a season of racing in Lamborghini Super Trofeo last season. And second generation racer heading down through Paddock Hill Bend in 11th place, chasing after George Gamble, who was second in yesterday's race. Third yesterday was Will Martin. So it's a really different look today than yesterday, but of course yesterday's race was based on a Donington grid.
Yeah, and it was the partial reverse grid as well, yeah, from Donington. The top 5 from the first race at Donington got reversed, and so very different look to this sort of race. The very distinctive liveried, half camouflage, half liveried car of Hugo Ellis. Definitely into a rhythm now, and a rhythm is what you need here when you've got 30 laps to in front of you.
So the Team Parker car comes through, Jelly second and Will Martin third. Stephen Jelly has just done the fastest lap of the race and is still hovering around the 0.6 of a second margin adrift of Ellis, but might well have to worry about Martin behind him in third spot now. That's Josh Stanton in the red and white car heading up the hill towards Druids. He is currently 4th in Pro-Am, 13th overall.
Yeah, just a little bit of bodywork, wheel arch flapping off the left-hand front of Josh Stanton's car, but nothing to worry about, nothing serious there at all. Certainly wouldn't warrant a black and orange meatball flag, as you call it, David. Hopefully it'll just fall off anyway, but shouldn't impact his car at all.
Yeah, heading up towards clearways is Josh Stanton, and Ellis, to the eye, looks a little bit further ahead this time. So as you say, he's in that rhythm, and all of the mileage that he's done now being put to good use. We're getting track limit penalties with lap times disallowed, and the first of those to Stephen Jelly. Fastest lap of the race now to the man in 10th place, and that's George Gamble.
Yeah, George Gamble had a very strong race, another ex-touring car, had a very strong race yesterday, finishing second, and he's definitely got into the zone with these cars. Another Century Motorsport car, and but track limits violations at this stage of a 30-lap race, on lap 6, you definitely don't want, do you?
No, indeed. And if you're wondering why they take lap times away, it is because there are awards at the end of the season for the number of fastest laps. So if one of your fastest laps is done illegally, then you can't really count it. So that's why lap times are disallowed. But equally, you are accruing a tally that heads towards a rather more serious time penalty, and we had people being given 5-second time penalties in yesterday's race. We are now on to lap 7, and the fastest lap being passed around, isn't it? Because now it has gone to Sid Smith. The gap between the leaders down ever so slightly last time, from 0.6 to half a second. So certainly Jelly has not given up, and he's edging nearer, is he not, to Ellis?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. As I say, as the tyres coming, I mean, the reason you're seeing the fastest laps coming now is because these cars work the left-hand side very hard indeed, going around the clockwise circuit, but not so much the right-hand side. So it takes a few laps before they're at their optimum, and so you always see the fastest laps around lap 5, 6, 7, 8.
Ellis goes through, and the gap 0.523 of a second. It's down by, again, a few thousandths. In third place, Will Martin dropping away a bit, but there's a game on for fourth, isn't there? Charles Rainford just ahead of Sid Smith. Smith is the leading Pro-Am there in the green and white car. He's also the leading rookie, and he's adapted to Porsches really quickly. Remember how well he went at Donington early on?
Yeah, straight in the car, he was quick, and it's great to see newcomers coming into this championship and going so well. And certainly the rookie award at the end of the year is a much prized and carries with it some healthy prize money to go with it.
Sid Smith's father, Rob, a former Porsche racer, whether it's been in block pan endurance races or British endurance events, so comes from good Porsche racing stock, as Hugo Ellis now leads by just 0.490 of a second. So Jelly is creeping closer, even if they're not massive gains, but he is getting a little bit nearer. And then, if he's close enough to attack, it will be fascinating to see how Ellis starts to deal with the pressure.
Well, that actually looks already less than 0.4 of a second, doesn't it? So Jelly looked very quick through Paddock and into Druids, definitely. And then around the second half of the lap, it looks like that gap extends a little bit.
But Ellis right now is doing a very, very good job, isn't he, as he comes up through the Clark Curve. We've been used to seeing him in the Napa colours for the last couple of seasons. Oliver White there, just ahead of George Gamble. This is for 9th and 10th places. White is second in Pro-Am. Gamble is a pro.
Yeah, Ollie White going quickly this year. Showed flashes of speed last year. And a dive down the inside from Gamble.
Job done.
Ollie White gives him room sensibly, and through goes George Gamble to take that 9th place.
So George Gamble gains ground. Of course, as far as Oliver White's concerned, it's not really his battle. He's fighting for Pro-Am points, not overall positions, but he's got to be mindful that his Pro-Am rival Sid Smith is quite a long way up the road. Here it is again.
Yeah, a fake to the outside, then a dive to straighten up as much as you can the steering while you get on the brakes. Easy to lock the right front brake unless you get the car as straight as possible, but going up the inside and over the increased bump on the inside makes it hard to stop the car.
Will Martin in third place has been given a 5-second penalty for track limits. So Will Martin is running third on the road, but he's 9th in the classification now, just to confuse things for us. So the man third on the road with a time penalty.
Well, there were two time penalties applied yesterday, but the closer the field is, obviously the more impact that has. We had a safety car yesterday. If there's no safety car, the field will stretch out a little bit and he can regain some of that time or positions on the time. But that's quite a blow for Will Martin, the first round winner, and currently, or on the road at least, third place.
And he's also dropping away from Jelly. He's in the clutches of Rainford. So the leaders into this middle third of the race now, with 11 laps done of the 30 go by, and Ellis has pulled away once again. The gap's gone up to 0.7 of a second. So the race leader, Hugo Ellis, being able to respond to Stephen Jelly's challenge now. Charles Rainford is promoted to third place with that time penalty to Will Martin, and George Gamble's next target is going to be further up the road, Harry Foster, in another of the Eden Race Drive entries. The Eden Race Drive team, new to the grid this year, looked after by Dino Zamparelli, and certainly came out all guns blazing at Donington with that win for Will Martin.
Yeah, it was quite a debut, wasn't it? And great addition to the paddock. Team very professionally run. Dino himself, multiple race winner, plenty of experience, so they've got someone ideal to call on for advice, haven't they? But in Will Martin, they've got an excellent team leader.
So there going through is number 16, another of those Eden Race Drive cars. Harry Foster it is, and as he rounds Paddock Hill Bend, he's currently 7th in this amended classification. So what you see on the track is slightly distorted from the real situation. But number 90, Josh Malin, coming under attack from Josh Stanton. Josh Malin's quite a long way down the pack today, which is a surprise, because normally he's one of the very, very quick front runners, but he's never quite got it hooked up this weekend.
No, it hasn't quite, is he? But when he finds his form, he's a definite front runner, isn't he? But there's so little between the guys, you know, fractions of a second. This is Hosking in front of James Wallace, trying to find a way through. He does get through on the inside, coming out of clearways.
And Matt Rees is on the tail of James Wallace, looking at the black and green car that led at Donington before and off. And Matt Rees, new to Porsches this year, right on the tail of James Wallace, who was in a Mercedes in GT3 racing last season. But now Matt Rees commits to a look on the inside at least. Wallace gives him racing room. Matt Rees gets up on the inside. That'll be the outside line for Graham Hill Bend at the bottom of the hill. And James Wallace, if he brakes late enough, should and does retake the place.
Yeah, I had worries, didn't I, of another repeat of the Angus Whiteside accident, but Rees is coming back at him. Oh, brave by Wallace round the outside, but he runs wide. He's going to have to stabilise the car that brakes, but he stays on the inside. This is great racing between these two. It's more like a touring car race.
Wallace ahead as they come onto the pit straight. Matt Rees on the outside line, and they've been almost side by side for the best part of a lap now. Over the line they come. Rees will be ahead, but if James Wallace brakes later on that tighter inside line, he'll go back through, which he does. Rees wants the undercut, can't do it. He's run out wide, and they're still side by side all the way up to Druids.
Surely he's going to have to drop behind Wallace now, because he's got the other attention of Harry Foster right behind him now, and he does indeed slot behind him.
Great racing, and James Wallace earned that place to hang on to it. So wonderful battle between the two. Rees was ahead as they came across the line. So by 32 thousandths of a second, he was briefly into 5th place. But James Wallace has gone back there now, as you saw. Ellis leads Jelly. Rainford, Smith, Rees, Wallace. That was the order over the line, allowing for Will Martin's penalty. But it's
that battle between the two of them really allowed Harry Foster and the next man, George Gamble, who we saw earlier passing Ollie White. He's bridged that gap now to these, so it'll be interesting whether George Gamble can make some progress through these three in front.
Up to Druids they go. James Wallace turns through. Matt Rees behind him, and then the next pair of Foster and George Gamble running together as well. George Gamble is the one at the moment not benefiting from the penalty of Will Martin, so he needs to try and gain the position and get closer to the front to therefore be within the 5 seconds of Will Martin.
Yeah, gap at the front though is a healthy 1.5 seconds now. Ellis is really in the zone, driving beautifully, consistent lap times, showing he's got that rhythm. Jelly again has a gap on the road, at least over Will Martin, but further in front of Charles Rainsford by another 1.5 seconds.
So through paddock they turn. This is for 7th and 8th on the amended times, where you've got George Gamble hustling on the back of Foster. So together they run down the hill. But with the cars now on lap 17, there are other battles. The Joshes, Stanton on the back of Malin, coming out of Graham Hill Bend now. This currently going on for 12th and 13th places. In the classes, Pro-Am, still Sid Smith the leader, who is 4th, and the leading Am is Justin Sherwood. And Justin Sherwood currently running in 19th place overall, even though he's not raced in the championship up until this weekend. He didn't race at Donington, but can't keep a good man down, and Justin Sherwood carrying on as he left off last year.
Yes, how often have we said that? Justin Sherwood leading the AM category.
Didn't he win every race last year?
Yes.
Had the championship in his pocket long before the end of the season.
Yeah, he was finished and on the beach at the end before the season had ended, I think.
Indeed. Well, there he is, the leading Am, laps an Am, because through Justin Sherwood puts a lap on Richard Hosking. But go back quite a while. Justin was a quick single-seater racer in Formula Vauxhall and then in Formula 3. But Hugo Ellis is another of the young guns that's come into Porsche racing, and in the creatively coloured car heads up towards the line. This will put 18 laps in the book, and he has really served notice in this, hasn't he? Because look at the way in those last couple of laps he's got away from Stephen Jelly. We were all excited when it was down to 4/10. Now it's over 2 seconds.
Yeah, he really has got away with created a nice gap for himself, hasn't he? Which means he can manage his tyres, pick his lines, and just concentrate on not making mistakes. Easy for us to say, we're not sitting in an oven of a car, are we?
Well, Stephen Jelly certainly doesn't need to worry about fitness. He does all of his Ironman triathlons, doesn't he? He's one of the fittest blokes you'll find in the Toka paddock, but he's hanging on a second ahead at the moment of, on the road, Will Martin, but he's got that Damocletian 5 seconds to be added on at the end. That's Sid Smith, who is your leading Pro-Am, going very nicely, as he did at Donington. And 42 is George Gamble coming up towards the timing line. He is still trying to get closer to Will Martin so he can benefit from the 5-second penalty and gain a place.
Yeah, I mean, Martin is flashing the lights and really putting the pressure on. He is trying to go as quick as he can. On terms of time with that penalty, he's actually only, well, he's 7/10 behind James Wallace.
Downhill comes Harry Foster. George Gamble now looking for a way past. George second yesterday, but the winning pro. And did say afterwards he didn't really want to risk firing off Angus Whiteside, so was happy to take the place, but he's on the inside there, and a good move by George Gamble puts him ahead of Harry Foster. That's how you do it on the inside going through 30. Good pass, and George Gamble straight away will try and edge clear and get closer to the traffic ahead. There is another 5-second penalty coming. It's to Stephen Jelly, the man in second place now. So Jelly and Martin second and third on the road. There is Jelly. They've both been penalised.
Yeah, it's a shame, isn't it? And it's so difficult. These are big, heavy cars. They're fast. They move about. You can see it. A slight... you've only got to put a millimetre of the tyre over the outside of the curb, and it's a penalty. And, of course, the longer the race is, the more likelihood there is of doing that. So you have a long race, you don't get any more free passes, as it were. So, yeah, great shame, because the positions on the road are not going to reflect the results.
So now they are second and third over the line, both penalty drivers now. So Charles Rainford, who is fourth on the road, he's going to be second, having never been able to clear those two. And now another penalty comes to car 7, Justin Sherwood, the leading out.
Well, that won't affect him particularly, I don't think, but it's... oh, don't get me started on track limits again. This random system, and it is random by the admission of the circuit owners and the MSA. It's not a fair and capture-all system. It's just a, we might catch you and you might not, so don't do it. But it is absolutely ruining race results. In qualifying, the number of laps that are disallowed, and in racing, the results that are affected, it's just... You know, I still believe if a rule can't be applied fairly and uniformly, it's not fit for purpose. But that's the rules we have to race under, and the drivers know it. And
now Sid Smith has been given a 5-second penalty, leading Pro-Am. He will hang on to that, but he's lost his rookie class lead to Matt Rees. So yet another one, but I take your point. I won't get you started on track limits.
You have.
Well, without knowing it. So right there, penalty. Okay, penalty. So 3 within the top 5 on the road, now all with penalties.
Yeah, and of course, everyone's pushing, but the fastest cars are pushing to the absolute limit, which begs the question, if the fastest cars on the track are doing this, are you basically saying to everybody, slow down a little bit to avoid track penalties, or do you want to see people race to the maximum?
So the old phrase, keep off the grass, it's all stemmed from there. Circuit owners being frustrated by having to do repairs to circuits after people were going wide over curbs, but you're quite right, it has certainly spoilt racing, and it's not just a UK thing these days, it's worldwide. The more circuits that have these low curbs as well to accommodate motorbike racing, the more a car can go over them and therefore exceed the track limit.
But what we need to do is invest in the technology, whether it's very accurate military-grade GPS software, something that will work uniformly in cars to end this problem. It cannot be beyond the might of the motorsport brains to come up with something, rather than this sort of fairly random solution that's in place at the moment. But the one man who hasn't made any mistakes, and let's not take any praise away because he's driven an exemplary race, is this man at the front, Hugo Ellis, who has a large gap now on the roads, in times 3.8, nearly 4 seconds. So he doesn't need to even try and get near the track limits.
No, he can just bring it home. And this is an absolutely outstanding drive, isn't it? Because he has done such a good job in this race, coming now up towards clearways. So he accelerates towards the right-hand of Clark curve, comes up. This will now put 25 laps in the book. But he's been knocking on the door of a good result for the last couple of seasons, but all of a sudden this looks like everything has clicked. Yeah,
it's great to see, but there is an advantage to being at the front, but you still have to produce the goods, make a good start, and make sure you get away without making any mistakes. But he's absolutely done it in this race. not been under as much pressure from behind as Angus Whiteside was yesterday. He had 3 cars queuing up behind him, much harder then to win the race, but certainly he's had the pace, he's had the fastest lap, and he gets the extra points for that, and driven an exemplary race.
So we're on lap 26 of the 30 right now, as you look at number 44 of Abby Eaton, edging closer to Ollie White. Now that is a battle for second within Pro-Am. So although they are on the road and allowing for penalties, running 10th and 11th, it's the class positions and the class points that are important for the two. Over the line goes Oliver White in the silver car, very quick Formula Ford racer. Abby Eaton goes through behind, but not close enough to really think about attacking.
No, and this will actually give James Wallace his first podium in the championship as the Porsche Junior, so that would be a great result for him.
So as the race leaders are on lap 27, class leaders, well, with all the shuffling of the penalties, Pro-Am, it's still Sid Smith, albeit Oliver White and Abby Eaton are going to be closer on the final classification, even if they're not closer on the road. They will be, thanks to the penalty applied.
Yeah, very difficult for us to follow the race. We have to look at the timing screens to see what order they're in. There's absolutely no point, bar the leader, looking at the racetrack, is there?
But
which only makes it more confusing for those outside watching the race.
Yeah, the Pro-Am and Am leaders both penalised, but the Pro leader, the overall leader, is absolutely okay, and he's on lap 28, and it's Hugo Ellis having, as I say, the best drive we've ever seen out of him. He moved to Team Parker Racing midway through last year and signed for the back end of last season and this, and it was a good move. As there, Sid Smith comes up on the inside of Richard Hosking, being backed again. Sid Smith goes by. That's your leading Pro-Am. The leading rookie is Matt Rees, who led at Donington but hasn't gone quite so well here.
Yeah. And Abby Eaton, we saw a brief shot of her just a while ago. She's on for her first Pro-Am. She's on for the podium, isn't she, in Pro-Am?
Yes.
She's in 3rd place at the moment.
Yeah, she's done quite a lot of sports car racing over the years, not just Lamborghini, but she had a Blancpain Endurance Series class win at Monza many moons ago, so sports cars, GT-style cars suit Abby. There's Matt Rees coming up on the inside. The black and green car goes by, puts a lap on Richard Hosking, and Matt Rees, on corrected times, is running 5th.
Yeah, great to see Abby in the championship, and I think she's only going to get stronger as the season goes on.
Another 5-second time penalty now being applied, and it's to David Sterling, another of the AMs, making a very welcome return to the championship. So David Sterling, 5-second penalty to him. That's his yellow car, in fact, just going through shot. Ollie Jackson passing, and the race leader is onto his last lap. So Hugo Ellis on the last lap of the race, and there he is. What a drive.
Fantastic drive. Hats off to him. He'll be delighted to have done this live on television in front of a capacity crowd here at Brands. He'll definitely need some cold water when he gets into the Parc Fermé area.
So Hugo Ellis comes through, and George Gamble's got a problem then. The Century Motorsport car has crawled over the line. That's him done. So George Gamble coasting to a halt on the approach to Paddock Hill Bend. He won't finish the race, but Hugo Ellis will finish the race. Hugo Ellis will take a first win in Carrera Cup GB, and Hugo Ellis will win in commanding style. Brilliant drive. Hugo Ellis wins at Brands Hatch, and he will win by a very big margin over Charles Rainford in real terms. He's second, over 5 seconds adrift. Stephen Jelly and Will Martin are penalised, so James Wallace gets 3rd, Jelly 4th, Matt Rees 5th, Will Martin 6th, Sid Smith 7th, Harry Foster 8th, Ollie White 9th, Abby Eaton 10th. Class win for Sid Smith in Pro-Am, and Justin Sherwood is going to be the winning Am. But Hugo Ellis, well, kind of out of superlatives. That was a Colin Turkington-esque drive, really. Just dominated it, not a wheel wrong, controlled it early on, and then built the gap. Yeah, wonderful drive. I'm very pleased for Hugo. The other thing to look at is the positions 4, 5 and 6. One of those on the partially reversed grid will be on pole for race 2, and those